Today, we have a doctor in the house, and I am so happy to have her and have this podcast and know about her journey. And she is 61 years of age, and she is so positive to life. And that's Dr. Rajul Matkar over here for us. And we will talk to her, let her know about her story, how was her journey. How did I meet her? Was through a referral. Thank you, Rita, for giving Dr. Rajul my space as an for the workshop, and that's how our journey began. And let's see how it goes forward.
Thank you, Marina, so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk to you because that's something I'm really looking forward to. It's amazing.
Yes. So, first thing is tell us about yourself and maybe your 30-second pitch to a networking event.
So, yes, as you said, my name is Dr. Rajul Matkar, and I am an obstetrician and gynecologist in practice for 35 years now. In the last 10 years, I've also been blogging for food, beauty, and lifestyle because I've slowly incorporated functional medicine and natural ways to heal women's hormonal problems and give them the option of eradicating the disease from within rather than just treating symptoms and signs. That is my aim in life, to teach everyone how to heal themselves from within. And on this journey, I really believe in the food part of it. So I'm quite a foodie. I explore a lot of food related events and do a lot of foodie events also. And so I've been blogging because it's fun to do all the other things.
Absolutely. So now the reason how we met and how this came to life today is through these networking events, right?
Absolutely.
And what is it like you being a doctor and seeing you over there networking? How is it making sense? Please tell us.
Okay, so initially when I started networking, I love meeting people. I connect with people and I want to hear people's stories also. That's why I come to the events. Besides telling my story, I also feel that we inspire each other when we hear each other's stories. We don't know who is going through what and who will be impacted by your story or how somebody's story may impact you.
Yeah.
So I find that coming for networking events, being visible at a networking event really works for me. A lot of people seem to think that because I've chosen to go part-time in my practice in the last 4 years since COVID happened.
Okay.
They seem to think I don't have any work. A lot of people.
Okay.
It doesn't bother me anymore. I've come to a stage where I wanted to take out this time, do things that I enjoy doing. And I sit at only one place and practice at one place at MedStar. And I do that because I don't want to work at other places that don't respect me and the value and the skills that I bring to the table. That's the main reason why I don't want to go from place to place just sitting and wasting my time. It's not that I cannot approach people and have more people benefit from my practice, of course. But that doesn't then give me time to do everything else that I think I make quite an impact on women in everything else that I do also. So I think that is something that gives me a lot of pleasure.
Absolutely. And the best thing about you is that you are available as a doctor. When our meetup was not at the networking event, we knew before and then we came to why is a doctor there? What does doctors have work,
So a
right?
lot of people have this question that why are you going? But something, I am seeing that when we make a personal connection in the networking events that we go for, people look at us regularly at the event. We show up because that matters. Like any other entrepreneur or any other business person would show up to talk about their business. I am showing up to talk about my business. And when people see this, and when they come to you and they give you reviews and they let other people know, it brings in a lot of credibility also. I really juggle my time to make sure that I'm there for events, for networking, and I don't let my clinic suffer because of that. I'm very fortunate that they have given me the flexibility to be able to adjust it accordingly.
Wow.
And they are happy with patients that I bring to the hospital also. So I think I'm quite happy with the networking that I'm doing.
And I think a lot of other doctors out there, rather than just being in your cabin, go out there, make those real bonds with your not patient at this moment, and maybe with the
Yeah, so
patients.
most of them are not patients, but
Yes.
they're all connections that you've made.
Yes, absolutely.
And
And,
that-
comfortability that we get to ask you
Yes.
certain question when we don't find it that comfortable when we go in that cabin, right?
Absolutely. I think that approachability is something that every doctor should have, which a lot of us, I think, are not taught. We've been taught to be clinical. We've been taught to be in our clinics, sitting on our chairs. And I think, I don't know, I've always connected with my patient, and I want the patient to feel that I'm approachable, and that that's why for my patients, they have my mobile numbers. They can call me any time of the day and night. Just they have to be, I just want them to be aware that you just can't, if it's really important, you can call me.
Yeah.
And I'm available for them.
Yes.
And I've done that my whole life. So it's not something new for me.
Now, because you have been in so many networking events and so many connections that you have built over a period of time, can you tell us about a memorable collaboration that you might have done, or some collaboration that didn't go very well, both sides?
Okay, so I've been very fortunate that people have, wherever I've gone for networking events, there are quite a few people who have taken me seriously and have been very happy to collaborate. Okay, so I'll just mention one or two people at Indian Women Networking.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of collaborations with them.
Okay.
I'm one of the influencers on their panel kind of thing also.
Okay.
So I've done restaurant collabs with them. I've even done a furniture store with them. It was very interesting and fun. Okay. And I really enjoyed that part of it. I like putting it out there for people to see what I am going through. So this really makes it interesting. And through the networking, I've met people who've collaborated with me. And one particular one has really stood out recently because she went out of her way to do such a beautiful cake and snacks for my birthday.
Wow.
That's Dipti has done that for me.
Oh, wow.
And it's amazing because there are people who've done chocolates. There are people like Purple Swan has also collaborated before I even started networking. When I met her and she was open to it, I met her at one of the, exhibitions.
Yeah.
So for me, networking has been really beneficial in terms of the connections, as I said. And then if the person feels comfortable to collab, it is really good because it works both ways.
Both ways, yes. And I truly believe in collaborations, and what outcome it can bring for the long run is something that's fascinating at the
So
moment.
even if we don't talk about tangible and about materialistic things that we get out of collaborations, even workshops that I have done where they are with lifestyle coaches and other people also, because this is something that I talk about also in my workshops, women's health with, emotional, mental and physical well-being.
Yeah.
So I do workshops like that, and I think it really matters that when you do collabs, you reach more people.
Correct, absolutely. Now, I want to know about this particular thing. You are a gynac and then you are a food blogger. Like, I have seen a lot of Instagram where doctors talk about their profession on social media, if they are on social media. How does a gynac become a food blogger? What's that journey all about?
So about more than 10 years ago, nearly 10, 11 years ago, there was a time when I lost my father about in 2012. And I was very sick in the 3 months after I lost him. And I think it was at that time that everything culminated in probably the stress of losing him and the grief triggered off everything. But I was suffering from certain things before that, and I could not put a finger to the diagnosis or to, the reason why those things were happening to me.
Okay.
And I was doing a lot of reading, and I said, I am going to change the way I eat. I'm going to change my lifestyle. Believe me, I was able to reverse a lot of my inflammatory joint problems, as well as I had other skin lesions also, which I completely brought under control with my diet.
Wow.
And the side effect was also that I lost weight also because of correct eating. That was also important.
So how did that transition happen? See, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I have been struggling to lose weight.
Yeah.
I started diet for one day. I switched back to whatever I'm
So
doing.
in anything, remember, Marina, consistency is key. And then it's important that we keep ourselves mentally happy here more than anything else. Most of us who go on diets always are, we are upset that we have to give up certain kinds of foods that we have got so used to. I always tell my patients, as well as I remind myself, that we have become a slave to our tongue. And it starts from the time that we are toddlers. Tell me, is there any need for mothers to feed their babies for the first time and add salt and sugar to it? We are actually teaching our children to form their tastes dependent on condiments and spices that we are adding, rather than see the flavor of the vegetable and the fruit by itself.
That's very well said, actually.
This is one of the things that we do. And now more and more people are telling people that you don't add salt, don't add sugar. But, traditionally, we put that in our food. And we give it to our children also.
Even the packed food or whatever is coming in,
It's full of salt and sugar.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So, when I think of it that way, I wanted to do something with my food habits that connected me more with whole foods, with local foods, with, something that was in season, because those are the things that actually heal your gut from within. And then when you heal your gut, your gut is looking after your immune system and your hormones. It's something really funny. People will not understand how that happens, but the bacteria that live with us are actually controlling how we feel in our mind and in our hearts, what we think, what we feel in our hearts. And our hormones are being controlled by that. And everything is connected. So if your hormones don't work properly, your immune system doesn't work properly, how is your body? Your body is meant to fight diseases by itself.
Yes.
You will trip up because your inflammation goes up because of what you're eating. The wrong foods, the wrong oil, it's a processed food. Okay? Yeah. So when your inflammation increases in your body, diseases come in. So when I healed myself partially, I wouldn't say I'm completely healed. And I'm not saying I'm the best and I'm very good. I am not. So I suffer from time to time because that happens.
Yes.
But then we are all human, and it's important to understand. You need to understand how your body works. And if that can happen, that is what I teach my patients regularly.
So you did see a lot of shift after you
I changed the way I eat. Absolutely. And so I started doing more and more research. I started really reading up a lot, and I realized that functional medicine brings in a lot of these treatment modalities. So I started adding it to my conventional medicine. See, I knew where to draw the fine line. I think all of us know what limitations we have as human beings and what limitations we have in our place of work. So if you can recognize your limitations and do something about it, I think that puts it above everything else.
Absolutely.
So that is what I try to achieve and do on a daily basis. I want to become a better version of myself. I just don't want to be the best of something or anything like that. I want to be better than what I was yesterday.
That brings me to this interesting topic, okay? You went on a solo trip without me. You did not even ask me out. You know, I'm such a
Marina.
Everyone knows in the networking.
You know something? I was looking for someone with a Schengen visa desperately.
By the way, I don't have a Schengen visa yet. So I forgive you.
Everyone who I asked said no, they don't have it and they can't take this trip. I just kept sort of putting it out because this was a trip I wanted to do. It was in my heart. And I got a Schengen visa 6 months back, which was valid for 6 months.
Okay.
And I kept feeling that Sicily is a place I want to go to just for a foodie trip. Okay. Where I wanted to do cooking classes and I wanted to do street food and I wanted to just go and see countryside living more than anything else. That was my aim. And I thought I won't get a chance after this. So at one point, it did cross my mind that I can apply for Schengen visa again also and go. But I think I was like, I want to do this now before anything happens.
What is it that inspired you? And what is the thought that came in your head that you ended up to? Is it your first solo trip, by the way?
No.
No, it has been.
I did a solo trip in January to Greece.
Oh, wow.
And that was because we had a family trip planned to Norway.
Okay.
My husband loves traveling in the snow every time. Okay. So we choose, and he loves the Scandinavian countries. So we go somewhere or the other every winter.
Okay.
Every 2 years rather, not every year. But it's winter time.
Okay.
And I couldn't do my Norway visa with him because I was traveling to India at that time last year.
Okay.
So when we applied, he got his single entry visa. I'm particularly saying single entry because people ask me, why did you go without your husband?
Oh, okay.
Because he didn't have a Schengen visa. That's why. And I don't think he would have enjoyed this trip because he's not the type of foodie and food crazy like how I am.
Okay.
So he likes different things and we do trips together, of course, where we do both our interests partially.
Yeah.
But I don't want to pull him along on a trip and worry about, is he okay? Is he this was a trip that I was doing just purely for myself. And I think everybody should do this. So Greece happened because I didn't want to enter Norway without entering Greece. I was a little worried about what if I was told over there that you had an entry visa for Greece and how did you come to Norway directly? So I told my husband, I will go over the weekend just to do an entry.
Okay.
But me being me, I cannot do an entry without really going and seeing everything. Okay. So I just went to Athens, nowhere else.
Okay.
But I did a food trip at that time also. I did a cooking class there because I had to see their street food and I had to do that.
Yeah.
So I did a Greek cooking class. And I have problems with my legs, Marina. I think I tell people my age is in my knees, okay, my knee joints. So for me to go to the Acropolis to climb up was something that in my mind, I was saying, I don't want to do it, but can I go there and not do it for the pictures? Of course, I would have gone. So I did all of that. I walked everywhere. I did everything. And those 3 days also were amazing, Marina. So this time I was not really, but whenever you choose a new country, you're always worried about, you hear stories. People have a hard time sometimes with things that happen on their trips.
Yes.
So you're worried about all of that and that's at the back of your mind. And I had never driven in any other country like this alone.
My God.
Okay. So, but I realized that when I was budgeting the trip, I realized that what it was costing me to just take a taxi one way to the place where I wanted to go and stay from Palermo airport was nearly the same as what it was costing me to do the whole 6 days car trip. So I just said, I will drive.
Who did your itinerary?
I did it myself.
Wow.
Completely. Of course, my husband helps me because I tell him that look for good cooking things and I trust his judgment because he normally is good at researching all of this. Okay. But then he sends me everything and I fine tune it to what I really want.
Yeah.
But the place where I stayed, the country living that I was talking about was so beautiful. They have vineyards and it's amazing. It was in a place called Vittoria, which is in the east of Sicily. And I'm telling you, everyone should do this. It was not like village living. It's a country living with amazing food. I think that property was superb.
The pictures, the day you posted it, I'm like, oh my God, it's so amazing. And the apartment that you stayed in,
Yeah.
it's the ground floor, and then you take the steps to go up.
Yeah.
I'm like thinking, how will her logistics work? How will she carry her suitcase up there? But at the same time, when you showed from your window the way it looks, I'm like, that's a
so
dream place to go.
Whenever you travel, a lot of people look at my videos and my stories, because I always have my stories also put in a story fashion. I like to tell a story when I put up things on Instagram.
Yeah.
So I would like to tell one thing to everyone, that you have to look at what works for you. And don't look at the negatives. There are negatives in everything.
Absolutely.
You should be used to certain kinds of hardship and certain kinds of not getting certain things.
Yes.
Because otherwise, then if you are looking for a very fancy trip, then you should look for a 5-star restaurant in a city or a 5-star hotel and just stay over there. That you can do those kind of trips also.
Yes.
Which is what I have done also. But this kind of thing where I was connected to my, to the, I love vegetables growing in the farm, and going to the vineyards and seeing how all the produce is coming, where it's coming from, the herbs, the fresh herbs that they had growing there and how they used it. It was just fabulous. It was like a dream come true for me.
Wow.
Really.
And you did your cooking as well. Was it in the same property?
So in that property also, I did one cooking class, which was street food typically of Sicily, which they don't even have in Italy. People in Italy also don't do, in North Italy also, they don't do that kind of food.
Okay.
So this was a street food classical of Sicily, which is called Scasce Ragusane.
Okay.
So it's of that district. But a lot of people in Sicily eat that food, and it was so nice to see something that's local.
Yeah.
And then in Palermo also, I did a cooking class along with a market tour, I love going into local markets to see how their produce is, what is available, the lovely vegetables and fruits. And, there's something about markets that excite me. Even if I go to a supermarket, I'm very excited to see good produce. So I don't know what it is about it, but that really makes me feel really nice to learn more about the produce and learn more about. It's amazing what you learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you have a good teacher who really tells you the good history and cultural, tells you all the stories about it, it just ties up everything. It's amazing.
I think you even did a Michelin star hotel.
Yes. So
restaurant, sorry.
I wanted to do, there was a tour I was looking at, and that tour didn't work out. And I think everything happens for the good.
Okay.
Because one of the tours I didn't take because I thought it was really very expensive. And I did my own itinerary because I was looking at my budget, how I was working with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I wanted to definitely do the Michelin star. My son and me are gourmet crazy.
Okay.
And normally when we travel together, we make sure we do some Michelin thing.
Okay.
So he wasn't here this time with me, but I said, no, I will do it, And I figured it out and I booked it beforehand. So I made sure that I could go. And I had the choice of doing a business lunch or doing the 8-course, everything on the table kind of. And I said, what should I do? And I said, what the hell? It's once in a lifetime. Just do it.
Do it.
So that was the real splurge that I did.
Yeah.
But it was something that I think anybody who has a chance to go there and do must do. Somebody who is interested in food and somebody who is okay about trying new things.
Yeah.
That place where I went was superb.
Fantastic. So what's that one memory? Let's wind up this particular topic. What's that one memory that you remember, you cherish, and you motivate us as women to travel solo?
If I really cherish, it's the time that I have with myself. When I sit down at meal times, I can do what I want to. And here I had the option of looking at sunset when I was sitting for my dinner.
Okay.
So that's one thing that has really stayed with me, then that property particularly. Also, there was someone who helped me. Normally I'm so scared to ask people if I'm alone because you don't know what kind of people you will come across.
Yes.
But I did get lost in one area while I was driving to the place on my first day. And I stopped at a fuel petrol pump.
Yeah.
And I asked somebody, and there was another person filling his car with fuel.
Yeah.
And he told me, just follow me and I'll take you to the point where you have to turn off on the road. And I think there are good people all over the world. We just have to look for them.
How was driving there?
So-
Now, I have fear of Dubai driving.
So it's so much similar to how I would drive in India. There are people who they were not following any rules. Okay.
They should come to Dubai then.
Yeah, but I was worried and I was following the speed limits and all, and people behind me were looking at me like I was crazy when they were passing. But I didn't want to get any fines and I didn't want to take a chance.
Yeah.
And they just come careening down the road. The difference between India and there is that there they are driving at higher speeds than what we drive at in India, in Mumbai particularly when I go.
Yeah.
So I feel that, but otherwise they have scooties and they have their cars also. They're driving like crazy people on the road, and I think it's just culturally they are like that.
Yeah.
But it was not bad. They've got small roads. But if you're careful, it's not bad at all.
Interesting. Looking forward for. Don't miss me out, okay? On the next one.
So this one, I would love having anybody with me on a trip who is like-minded, because driving alone 900 kilometers, it is a little stressful.
I'm not going to be your driving buddy.
No, not a driving buddy, but I need somebody for navigation and to talk to.
That's perfect.
all. I can drive anywhere, any number of times.
Yes.
But it's nice to have somebody to navigate with you.
Now, an interesting topic, okay? I'm in my 30s, okay? And I am not looking forward to have a child, or it doesn't occur to me that, existence of a child is really required. That's a mindset over a period of time, how relationships are, and how my entrepreneur journey is so good that, I feel I'm happy here, okay, without being a child. What was your take back then? And how is it right now?
Okay, so let me tell you what I felt back then.
Yeah.
Okay, I was married and I knew I had some problems. So I thought I was getting married really late in a way, because that's how people think or thought that time.
Yeah.
I finished my MD and then I got married. I was 27. It's not late, believe me. But at that point, I thought, okay, it's really late, because I did my MBBS, I did my MD, and then I got married.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have a baby. It was extremely important for me to have babies, and I wanted 3 children. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And I wanted 1 boy and 2 girls.
Yeah.
So that was the equation I was looking at. Okay.
Okay.
And I tried to conceive right from the time I got married. Okay. Not that my husband was crazy about it, or not that my husband was forcing me to have a baby. He said, take your time. This is not something that I'm very keen about. Okay, it's all right. Unfortunately for me, I had problems which were not very specific. And I went through a lot of infertility treatment. Okay. I didn't have kids for 11 years of my marriage. I had 1 miscarriage right in the first year of my marriage.
Oh, wow.
And then I had IUIs, I had multiple, and I had 3 IVFs that didn't work out. I gave up everything after that, because my husband used to always tell me that every cow on the road can have a kid. Why are you worried? You're made for better things. This is what he had told me.
Really?
Really.
Back then?
And I'm talking of the 1990s.
My God.
Okay. But yes, you do feel a little pressure, though my in-laws had never pressurized me. They kept doing things on their end to, whether it's religiously concerned, whether it's other things, to make sure that we would have babies.
Yeah.
All right. So you feel, and personally, I wanted to desperately have a baby. So that was something that I felt I was running after and I didn't get. 2 years down the line, after I gave up all treatments, I had a natural conception and I was 38 years old at that time. So this is a story that I tell, and this is not my story alone. There are many, many patients who face this kind of thing. So first thing I'll tell you, Marina, is things have changed partially. How? I didn't stop being a career woman at that time either. Just to give you perspective, I didn't stop working the day I became pregnant, though that was a precious pregnancy. I was working full time. I had my own practice. In fact, I work less now as compared to what I've ever worked before in my life. I was delivering 35 to 40 babies a month at that point. Okay. I didn't give up work right through my pregnancy. I was very, very fortunate. I had no other complications. And I chose the day I wanted to deliver. In fact, my gynecologist was a very close friend of mine, also in a senior. Okay. And she told me you'll have a normal delivery properly. And I had made up my mind that I didn't want a normal delivery. Okay. So I told her I'm going to have a cesarean and you're going to do it on the day I tell you you're going to do it. And that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
And I just didn't want any complications with my baby, which was precious when I had not had anything antenatally, to have it during labor. I didn't want any fetal distress or anything. So I chose that way. But it's not what everybody would choose to do. And career was most important to me. 2 days before I delivered, I stopped working. 2 days. I cleaned out my kitchen, stopped working, closed my house, moved to my mother's place because I knew I was going to have the cesarean the next day. And then I stayed with my mom for 8 months after that. That was a boon because I continued to work after that. I had 3 patients who were due with me, my patients, who had not delivered before me. Okay. Marina, I went back to work on day 8 in my clinic of my cesarean.
Day 8?
Day 8. I didn't have my stitches out or anything then. I did a full clinic because I had to see my patients. I delivered 1 patient on day 9, 1 on day 10, and 1 on day 15 of my delivery. The day I delivered, when they moved me up to my room, one of my patients who was pregnant had gone into a panic mode when she realized that I've gone into the hospital for my delivery. She came with a false labor pain at that time and she insisted that she must see me. I was lying on my bed. I got my, I had delivered in the same place where I was working. So I had my resident doctors with me. Yeah. So I told my resident doctors, let her come up. She sat on my bed. I put my hand on her stomach and I said, see, I'm telling you, you are not in labor. And that even if you go into labor in the next 3-4 days, I'm here. I will come down to the labor room. Don't worry. So she went home and she's the one who delivered on the 15th day after I delivered. So this is just something, I don't know where I get my energy or my, where I got it at that time. Yeah. I continued to work even after that because I was as I said, I was fortunate. I stayed with my mother. I breastfed my baby for 16 months. It's not like I gave up on anything. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed my time with my baby and it was something that I wanted to do, not because the baby needed me, but I've always maintained that I needed my child. I've spent time with my child because they were my needs. Yeah. And I've made time to do everything with my child. Just as I make time now to do everything that I want to do.
So, you said you delivered your baby when you were 38 years of age.
So now the thing that has changed is there are more career-minded women who may choose not to have a baby. And that's fine. It is their choice.
What about your society? What about your...
Why should you care about society if that's the most important thing that you want? It's between you and your husband. What your family logistics, how they are working is what you need to work out. Nobody outside needs to matter. This is something that you need to decide. Whether you want that baby, you don't want the baby, it is a decision between you and your husband as a family unit. You're not even having the baby for your in-laws or for your parents. I think expecting in our cultural background, we expect them to look after our children. Yeah. It's not their job to do it. Yeah. It's your job
to take care
of your baby.
But say, example, my situation, right now I don't want to. But say 10 years down the line, 15 years down the
Yes.
line, loneliness will hit.
If loneliness is going to hit you, if that's what you're thinking now, then be ready for everything that goes together with having the baby now. Okay, I have a question to ask you, Marina. This is very, very controversial, okay?
Okay.
Really, do you think your children will stay with you for the rest of your life?
Not really, but
They don't.
yes.
And you have to let them go. You are there. You had your children because you wanted to have children and you wanted to continue your progeny, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
But you have to let them go. It's their life. You are part of their life. But you cannot conduct their life for them.
But right now, we take care of our parents.
That's fine.
right?
That's fine. That's a choice you're making. I don't
Yeah.
expect anything from my son. I expect him to talk to me. I expect him to be, I'm not saying that children should walk away and leave parents and go away. No.
Yeah.
You have certain duties and you need to have certain responsibilities. But that expectation when it comes in to, let's say, unrealistic expectation, that's something we should not be having. We should maintain our family values and have that connection. But supposing today my child is studying in UK today and he tells me that, Mom, I may want to settle. I have only one child and I can actually have him live with me. Why would I want that? Even how much ever I want it, why would I want anybody to, did I want to share my kitchen space with anybody? So it's nice to have, but if I want things my way, then I think we should give them their way.
As well. Yeah. That's
And I want to talk about something now that's really medical, and that's something that a lot of people are thinking of at the moment, and we are advising it to people also. So many career-minded women are now having children late.
yeah.
Freeze your eggs in time. Okay? It's an absolute thing you should be looking at because it helps you have better quality eggs when you want to have babies later on.
Okay.
Because we can't beat our biological clock, whatever we may try. Our egg quality and the quantity of eggs becomes less after our 30s.
Okay.
So I'm not saying you can't have babies and you can't have good eggs, but there is a chance you may have a problem. So what's the harm in putting it as insurance? And any decision that you take that's related to your career, even if it doesn't pan out as it should later on, is a decision you made. And I think, Marina, the accountability and responsibility is on you. So if it didn't work out, fine, it didn't. There was something you tried and it didn't work out for you. But do you sit in the past? So many things have gone wrong for me, Marina. So many things. I don't want to. I cried a lot over it. And I don't want to do it anymore. So
you think when the time will come, I will figure something out by then and things will work out, and the way things are changing.
And yes, I am suggesting that if you have the means and you have the financial means and you can do it, freeze your eggs.
Okay.
Or you even have the choice today of surrogacy, you have the choice of adoption, you have the choice of, there are multiple things.
Multiple things. Absolutely.
And as my son told me once, Mummy, I'll have dogs and cats.
I do have 6 cats. So I'm a mama
it's
to
okay
6
to be a pet lover and I have, my son is doing veterinary medicine and that has changed my perspective to animals completely, which I didn't have before.
One thing, that inspires me, and it's not just you and Rita, is that, my mom is same as your age. I think she just turned 60 this year. And she is a homemaker. She likes being at home. And even today, she has opted that life for herself. But you guys go out there and show up. And especially Rita starting her business after, after people, shadi ho gaya, education ho gaya, sab ho gaya. And then they are like, it's time for me to rest.
So I want to say something. It's a choice about your mom particularly.
Yeah.
It's all the homemakers who are there and who don't want to do anything else. It's their choice and I respect that completely. it's a big job they have done and they're still doing.
Yes.
Okay. Homemakers are, I have a huge respect for people who manage the house, who do everything at home. Okay. Because I juggle both, so I know what it takes to do that. And I'm very house proud myself, so I know exactly what goes into that. But if you are at home and if you are in the older age bracket and you're not happy with something that you're doing and you want to change that, then the thing I will say is that please get up and go and try it. Because what can happen, the worst thing that can happen is that it may not work out. But don't sit at home thinking, I wish I had done that.
Absolutely. That brings me to the next question. Now, I've read articles that you have written, and while we were having conversation, you said that, the reels and the context that you write, and it's a big task.
Yes.
Honestly, my team does it for me. So
No,
if
I don't have a
someday-
team.
Yeah. So how do you, the modern technologies, whether it is in your industry or it's the presence of social media that is required, how have you developed it?
I'm smiling
age.
so much because I was so technologically challenged. My God. I used to bug my son. I used to tell him, please help me with this. Please do that.
Yeah.
Then he went off to university. Okay. And he used to tell me, Mom, you'll have to learn. Okay. You're doing this. He said, others don't do it. He says, don't go on Instagram. Don't do it. So yes, I've learned a lot. Imagine I went this time. The most difficult thing for me was to get an eSIM
Oh, wow.
and to register it. I did all of that.
Yeah.
I somehow did it at the airport. Okay.
You managed it.
I managed it and I managed to choose the right SIM by trial and error. I did message my son and say that something is coming up over here that doesn't make sense to me. And he said, Mom, I'm busy. You please
Figure it
out.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was not wanting not to be helpful, but he had no choice.
Yeah.
Because he had his clinical rotations and I was actually bugging him at a time when he was in the hospital.
Yes.
So it was just not possible for him to do that.
Yeah.
Yes, I also call up my husband and cry sometimes when I'm on trips like this.
Yeah.
But that was only the first day because I think I was exhausted. My bag didn't come for 8 hours. Everything was a mess the first day.
Yeah.
But yes, I managed all of that. But I did cry and I told him, so my husband told him, me just stop somewhere and have a nice cup of coffee and then go ahead and it'll be fine. And I did exactly that.
Your husband looks to be a very supportive man.
Absolutely.
We would like to know more about him also.
He's very supportive. Sometimes I think he should not be so supportive. He should just tell me, Rajul, come here, do only this. Not that I would have tolerated it. But
Which industry is he in?
he's also a doctor.
My God. So
He's a surgeon.
You guys are like the doctor family.
Yes, my father was a doctor. My sisters are doctors. We come from a doctor background.
Wow.
Completely.
That's interesting. So how is your get-togethers like? Mera ye patient aisa tha, mera
We
wo
do
patient.
discuss. We do discuss it at home when my father was alive, and we had our dining tables were and conversations were around patients.
Yeah.
And cases we had seen, and because I think that's how I got a lot of insights from and learned a lot through experience also.
Technology. Tell us, how is Rajul and technology sinking in?
Yeah, so now it's sinking in perfectly because I realize that you have to change with the times. The person to teach me that was my father when he was in his 70s.
Okay.
Thoracotomies. He was doing thoracotomies. That means he was opening the lungs to take out, the chest to take out the lungs.
Okay.
And then thoracoscopies came in, like how laparoscopies had come in for us. Thoracoscopies. And he actually learnt that when I was showing resistance to learning. And for me, that was hugely inspiring because it showed that he was looking at wanting to add skills to his skills to be with the times. At that time, I was not in that framework of thinking as I am today. Today, I look at everything the same way. I want to learn new skills. I want to be able to, I will do what I can do in my, what is good for me, kind of. If I can't do something, I don't want to go crazy and do everything. So I teach myself new things for my social media regularly
Okay.
by trial and error also. I keep doing it. As I told you, I did the eSIM, which is something was completely new for me. It was actually mentioned by another person who knows me through networking. She just told me, try the eSIM, because I said, I have to get the So I had never heard of the eSIM before that. So really shout out to all these lovely women who are helping me in my networking. And the most important part is in my field of medicine. Who would have thought that aesthetic gynecology is something that would come in such a big way, and that would interest me also. So that is something I have sort of upgraded my skills on.
Okay.
I am doing, and it's related with technology. You need your laser machine. You need your other tools that you have not used before.
Correct.
So I think if you don't upgrade yourself regularly, you will be left out.
You said it interests you. So you think it's the right thing also?
So, I wanted to tell you something about that. Body dysmorphism is something that I don't advocate. Okay. I would not. If somebody came to me and told me, I had a patient actually who said she did a rhinoplasty, she did a breast job, she did a liposuction, and then she wanted to do her labiaplasty because she didn't like the way it looked, and then everything. So I actually put off doing that for a long time, because when somebody is unhappy with every part of their body, it's not the body that is the problem, it is the mind that is the problem. Okay? So a lot of women require a lot of counseling for that before you do any kind of surgical procedures, because these are not it's not a fun thing that you can do. It has a lot of pain if you've not been counseled properly. Women who undergo liposuction go through so much pain, they cry afterwards and they say, why was I not told about this? I mean, I'm not the one doing it, but I'm giving you examples. Yeah. So doing gynecological aesthetic work, which is surgical, requires there has to be a problem for which you need to do it.
Don't simply do it because it's available.
No, so I can understand yes, it's available. So if you think that's a real problem and you don't like it, then you need, and you want to do it, then it's available. Yes. Yeah. But small procedures are okay. Like you do intimate area whitening, you can do just vaginal rejuvenation with PRP. Those are okay. It's all right when you grow older to want to feel younger in your body all over. Yeah. So it's all right if you want to do some things.
Fantastic. Lovely having you. And lots of gossips and chit chats is what we did. And again, we were trying to be on the point, getting to know about Dr. Rajul and how her journey has been and how is she inspiring today and going forward as well. And she's trying to keep up with the technology world. This is my podcast studio and I have her as my guest. So if you are someone who want to be there and want to come out and showcase your professional life, personal life, or your anything that interests you, be my guest and let's see how we can take it forward. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Marina. This has been a privilege to be here in your Procast studio. I just loved it. Your studio is also beautiful and I'm so honored to be your guest today. Thank you very much.